The night shift settles into the hospital like a held breath. Fluorescent lights hum softly above polished floors. Monitors beep in steady rhythms that staff stop hearing after a while. The emergency department is busy but controlled. Stretchers moving, voices low, systems functioning just well enough to feel permanent. This is the world everyone trusts. Routine. Predictable. She moves through it without friction. Her badge says, "Registered Nurse," clipped slightly crooked to her scrubs. No senior markings. No one defers to her. Doctors pass without eye contact, already mid-thought, already elsewhere. She adjusts an IV rate a fraction lower than ordered, correcting a dosage that would have stressed a weak heart. She does not announce it. She documents it cleanly. The patient's breathing steadies. No one notices. At the charge desk, two nurses argue quietly about bed availability. Security walks past, joking about coffee. A trauma surgeon snaps at an intern for standing in the wrong place. The nurse watches all of it while restocking gloves, her eyes moving more than her hands need to. She notes who is tired, who is distracted, which exit doors are propped open for convenience. She memorizes patterns without trying to. A gurney blocks part of the west corridor. She nudges it closer to the wall as she passes, creating a clean line of sight down the hall. It looks like tidying. It is not. A supply cart squeaks on one wheel. She switches it with another. Noise draws attention. Attention draws risk. She does not explain this to anyone because no one asked. A patient in observation spikes a fever. She catches it before the monitor alarms, presses the call button herself, and starts cooling measures. When the resident arrives, he skims the chart, nods once, and leaves. He assumes the problem solved itself. That is fine with her. She prefers it that way. From the far end of the floor, an elevator dings, late for this hour. She glances up, not alarmed, just attentive. The doors open. Two people step out who do not look sick. They move with purpose but without urgency, scanning instead of searching. They walk past security without interaction. Security does not stop them. Security is thinking about coffee. She files the detail away. A junior nurse approaches, flustered, asking where to send a patient if radiology calls back. She answers calmly, precisely, without hesitation. The answer is correct. The junior nurse relaxes, unaware that she has just followed an instruction that rerouted a patient away from a future choke point. Overhead, a code blue is announced on another floor. The sound ripples through the building, raising heart rates, then fades as quickly as it came. The nurse exhales slowly. She watches how people react to stress when it is not theirs. Who freezes, who rushes, who listens. She has seen this building under pressure before. Not like this exactly, but enough to know how thin order really is. At the nurse's station, a physician complains about staffing. Someone mentions budget cuts. Someone else jokes that nothing ever happens on nights. The nurse signs a chart and walks away before the conversation finishes. She checks a stairwell door as she passes, presses it open just enough to confirm it swings freely, then lets it close. Locked doors trap people. Jammed doors kill them. She stops at a window overlooking the ambulance bay. Only one rig is parked. Its engine is still warm. She notes the angle, the lighting, the shadowed space near the loading dock where cameras do not quite reach. Her face shows nothing. If anyone were watching her closely, they might notice that she never stands with her back to an open space, that she positions herself where she can see both ends of a corridor, that she never clusters when others do, but no one is watching her closely. Why would they? She is just a nurse on a quiet floor, doing a quiet job, in a building everyone believes is safe, for now. The first sign is not dramatic. It never is. A medication delivery arrives late, 30 minutes behind schedule, with no explanation attached. The courier avoids eye contact, offers a rushed apology, and leaves before anyone can ask questions. The nurse signs for it anyway, but she notes the timestamp and the missing verification code. Logistics failures have causes. They rarely happen alone. She wheels the cart toward storage, pauses, and listens. The hospital has a sound when it is functioning properly, a layered rhythm, machines, voices, footsteps, distant elevators. Tonight, there are gaps in that rhythm, small ones, empty beats where something should be. At the security desk near the east entrance, one of the monitors flickers, then returns to normal. The guard taps the screen once, shrugs, and turns back to his phone. The nurse watches from the end of the hall while checking a patient's wristband. She memorizes which camera froze and for how long. In Trauma 2, a man brought in for minor injuries asks too many questions about hospital layout. He wants to know where imaging is, where the stairwells go, whether the ICU is on a separate power system. The attending laughs it off. Some patients are anxious, some are curious. The nurse says nothing. She adjusts the bed angle and positions herself between the patient and the door while she works. When she leaves the room, she quietly flags the chart. Not with an accusation, just a neutral note about behavior. It will likely be ignored. That is acceptable. The act of noticing matters more than the response. A call comes over the internal line. Maintenance reports a door sensor malfunction near the service corridor. Estimated repair time is unclear. The charge nurse sighs and asks if it can wait until morning. Maintenance says yes. The nurse listens, then walks the long way around to that corridor under the pretense of checking linens. The door does not latch cleanly. She tests it twice. On the third attempt, she wedges a rubber stopper beneath it. Not enough to hold it open, just enough to change how it closes. A delay. A fraction of a second. To anyone else, it looks like laziness. To her, it is a variable she can now predict. Back at the station, a junior doctor issues an order to move two patients closer together to free space. The nurse complies outwardly, then adjusts the final placement so neither bed blocks the hall. She does not challenge the order. She adapts it. She begins keeping patients closer to interior rooms. Windows make people feel better. They also make silhouettes. Another elevator dings. Then another, closer together this time. She notes the timing without looking up. Elevators, like people, reveal intent through rhythm. A nurse beside her laughs at a message on her phone. Someone else complains about the air being too cold. Life continues. The nurse washes her hands and studies the reflection in the stainless steel sink. Calm face, neutral posture. No one would guess her heart rate has shifted. Not faster, just steadier. She keys into a supply room and quietly inventories items she hopes she will not need. Tourniquets, trauma shears, emergency radios that no one remembers are there. She places them where her hands can find them without searching. When the charge nurse asks her to cover an extra room, she agrees immediately. More ground, better visibility. As she walks away, a distant sound echoes through the building. Metal on metal, brief and sharp, too heavy to be accidental. It stops as abruptly as it started. No announcement follows, no alarm. Others dismiss it. Someone jokes about construction. She does not. She changes direction and takes a longer route, passing 2 exits instead of 1. She touches her badge, adjusts it, and keeps moving. Whatever is coming is still aligning itself. There is time, but less than before. The hospital has not realized it is being tested. She has. The first scream comes from the ambulance bay. It is not loud enough to trigger alarms, not clear enough to give direction. It echoes briefly through the service corridors and dies against concrete. Inside the hospital, no announcement follows. No protocol activates. The building hesitates, waiting for certainty. The nurse does not. She stops walking and listens, isolating sound from noise. Footsteps, fast, uneven. A metallic clatter, closer this time. Then shouting, sharp and panicked, coming from security's direction. The pattern breaks. That is what matters. Overhead, a radio crackles at the nurse's station. 2 voices overlap. One demands confirmation. The other does not have it. Someone says lockdown, but the word floats without authority. No one presses the button. People begin to move without coordination. A doctor pushes past a gurney to reach the elevators. A patient's family spills into the hallway, confused, frightened, asking questions no one has answers for. Security runs the wrong way. The nurse steps into the flow and subtly alters it. She redirects a transport team toward a side corridor, using a calm voice and a simple instruction. They obey without questioning why. She closes a fire door halfway, not enough to alarm anyone, enough to slow movement and break sight lines. She pulls a patient room door shut and locks it, then tapes a handwritten sign over the window. Procedure in progress. Inside, the patient asks what's happening. "Stay here," she says. "Do not open the door." Her tone leaves no space for argument. A loud crack splits the air. Gunfire, unmistakable now. Screams follow. The sound is wrong for a hospital. Too sharp, too final. Someone yells for security. Someone else yells for help. The nurse moves toward the sound until it is close enough to be precise, then stops. She does not rush into chaos. She anchors it. At an intersection of corridors, she positions a crash cart sideways, blocking a straight path without making it obvious. She sends 2 nurses ahead of her, instructing them to clear rooms on the left only. She takes the right herself, faster, quieter. She keeps walls at her shoulder, corners wide. A man bursts from a stairwell, bleeding from the arm, eyes wide. He is not staff. He grabs at her sleeve, shouting that someone is shooting, that security is down. She catches him before he falls, presses a towel into his wound, and pushes him toward cover. "Sit." Pressure. "Do not move," she says. He listens. Down the hall, a security officer lies against the wall, radio crushed beneath him. Alive, shocked. The nurse kneels long enough to take the radio, checks his breathing, then moves on. She does not wait for permission. The building finally reacts. Doors begin to lock, but inconsistently. Some seal, some don't. Confusion spreads faster than instruction. A doctor attempts to take control and issues orders that funnel people toward the central elevators. The nurse hears it and quietly counters it. She moves staff toward stairwells that bypass the threat entirely, guiding them with short directions, never raising her voice. She does not explain. Explanation costs time. She counts heads instead. Another shot. Closer now. Too close. She stops a young nurse from running into an open corridor, grips her arm just long enough to halt momentum, and turns her around. The nurse is shaking, eyes glassy. "Breathe," she says once. "Follow them." The young nurse nods and goes. Somewhere ahead, the threat is moving with intent, not panic. That narrows the possibilities. This is not random violence, this is navigation. Someone knows where they are going, or who they are looking for. The nurse adjusts. She changes evacuation paths mid-flow, closing off access to critical wards without drawing attention to why. She creates pockets of safety instead of one mass movement. Smaller groups survive better. By the time official lockdown finally engages, much of the floor is already empty. No one has appointed her. No one has acknowledged her. Yet people are following her directions instinctively now, sensing clarity in the absence of it elsewhere. As she keys into a stairwell and signals for the last group to move, she hears footsteps on the other side of the wall, measured, controlled, approaching her position. She exhales once, steady. The threat is inside the hospital, and it is close. The stairwell door seals behind the last group, the lock engaging with a hollow metallic thud. The nurse does not linger to confirm it held. Doors are promises until they fail. She turns away before it can betray her. Voices rise from the central corridor. A senior physician stands in the open, shouting instructions that overlap with security's delayed radio commands. His authority is visible. White coat, confidence, volume. But his plan is wrong. He wants staff clustered. He wants eyes on patients. He wants order to look like order. The nurse watches people hesitate, torn between titles and instinct. She steps into the space without challenging him. She does not contradict. She redirects. She catches the attention of a respiratory therapist and gestures subtly toward a side hall, mouthing a single word. Now. The therapist moves. She taps a unit clerk's desk twice and points to the internal phone list. The clerk begins calling rooms, telling patients to stay put, lights off, doors locked. The nurse never raises her voice, yet the flow begins to bend. The physician notices. He frowns, irritated. "Who told you to do that?" he demands. "No one," she answers calmly. "But that corridor is exposed." He starts to argue. A gunshot echoes closer this time, the sound sharper indoors, bouncing off tile and steel. The argument dies unfinished. Fear resets the hierarchy. Security finally arrives in force, but without cohesion. Two officers push forward aggressively, weapons raised, blocking evacuation routes the nurse has already cleared. Their presence draws attention. Attention draws the threat. She moves between them and the nurses behind her, not as a shield, but as a pause. "That hall leads straight to ICU," she says evenly. "You don't want contact there." One officer bristles at being corrected by a nurse. The other hesitates. The second hesitation matters more. She hands him the crushed radio she took earlier. "Your channel is compromised," she adds. "Use this one. Stairwells B and D are clear. A is not." She does not explain how she knows. She does not need to. They exchange a look and split, abandoning the original plan. The first officer glares at her, then follows anyway. Authority has shifted, not by command, but by outcome. Down the corridor, alarms begin to sound. Doors forced, glass broken. The threat is testing boundaries now, probing response times. The nurse feels the building tighten around her, systems straining under incomplete information. A patient collapses near the nurse's station, panic-triggered, chest tight, breathing shallow. The nurse drops to her knees beside him, treating him while simultaneously watching reflections in the glass behind him. She stabilizes him with minimal equipment, instructs another nurse to stay until transport arrives, and moves on before thanks can be offered. Every second she spends is a second she is not mapping. A call comes through on the radio. Fragmented. Urgent. Security reports a suspect moving toward surgical suites. The physician orders a full evacuation of the floor. The nurse closes her eyes for half a second. Surgery cannot evacuate. Not fully, not safely. She steps in front of the physician this time, not blocking him, just existing in his path. "If you move them now," she says quietly, "you'll expose 3 intubated patients and a blind corner you can't secure." He stares at her, incredulous. "And you suggest what?" he snaps. She does not suggest. She states, "Lock the suites. Kill non-essential power. Reroute through sterile storage. I'll guide them." "You?" She meets his eyes, level and unflinching. "Yes." He hesitates, measuring reputation against reality. Another gunshot answers for her. "Do it," he says finally, voice tight. "I'll cover you." It is not permission she needs, but it will do. As she moves toward the surgical wing, staff fall in behind her without being told. She feels the weight of it then. Not pride, not adrenaline, but responsibility. Every decision narrows futures. Every mistake multiplies. She chooses anyway. Somewhere ahead, the threat changes direction, and for the first time, it feels intentional. The surgical wing smells different, cleaner, sharper, stripped of comfort. The nurse moves through it with certainty, not speed, guiding staff along routes that avoid glass walls and open intersections. She signals instead of speaking, letting momentum carry instructions where words would slow them down. Power dims as non-essential systems shut down. The lights do not go out entirely. They soften, reducing silhouettes, muting reflections. Someone did that correctly. She notes it, files it away. Competence exists here. It just needed direction. She reaches a wall-mounted evacuation map and studies it for less than a second. She does not read it. She already knows it. What she takes from it is confirmation. What has changed, what still holds. Elevators are dead. 2 stairwells are sealed. One remains viable, but only if timed correctly. She keys the radio once. Stagger movement. 30 seconds between groups. No running. There is no acknowledgement. There doesn't need to be. The flow adjusts. In a recovery room, a patient is waking mid-procedure, disoriented, tugging at tubes. The nurse steps in, anchors the patient's hands, and speaks softly until breathing slows. She leaves a doctor with him and moves on, already late somewhere else. Security reports the threat has paused, either reassessing or waiting. Both are dangerous. Waiting means listening. The nurse reroutes staff away from predictable shelters and into less obvious spaces, storage rooms with reinforced doors, imaging bays with limited access points. She avoids gathering people in numbers that invite attention. She keeps groups small, mobile, forgettable. A junior security officer tries to take command near the central junction, raising his voice, issuing blanket orders. The nurse intercepts his movements, not his authority. "Your perimeter overlaps mine," she says evenly. "You're creating congestion," he bristles. "I'm securing the area." "You're advertising it," she replies. He starts to argue. She doesn't wait for the outcome. She moves his team 10 meters down the hall with a gesture and a look that assumes compliance. They follow her instinctively. When he notices, it is already done. The building's internal phone system begins to fail, lines dropping, static creeping in. The nurse switches to runners, sending individuals she trusts with single, simple instructions. She does not overload anyone. People break under complexity. A message reaches her from radiology. The threat was seen moving away from surgery toward administrative access. That is wrong. There is nothing of value there, unless the value is position. She stops in a stairwell landing and listens to the building breathe. Air systems cycling, distant footsteps, the faint echo of movement above and below. She imagines the map again, this time with intent layered over structure. They are trying to control height. She redirects evacuation downward, not out, pulling people into lower levels with thicker walls and fewer windows. She closes off vertical access without announcing it, creating a slow trap that looks like confusion from the outside. A nurse challenges her quietly, fear edging her voice. "Why aren't we leaving?" The nurse meets her eyes. "Because leaving puts you in the open." The answer is enough. As she seals another access point, she feels the cost of the choices stacking up. Patients left behind longer than she would like. Staff asked to trust without explanation. Every decision trades one risk for another. She pays the cost herself first. When an explosion rattles the upper floor, contained but violent, she is close enough to feel it through the soles of her shoes. She stumbles, catches herself, keeps moving. Pain registers distantly. Focus remains. The threat has escalated. But now, for the first time, the hospital is not reacting blindly. It is moving according to a map only one person seems to be holding. The explosion does not breach the floor, but it changes everything. Dust drifts from ceiling panels in thin, pale lines. Somewhere above, sprinklers engage and then fail, water hammering briefly before cutting out. The building groans under the adjustment, systems correcting for damage that should not exist in a hospital. The nurse steadies herself against the wall until the tremor passes. Her ankle throbs where she struck it, a sharp, insistent reminder. She tests her weight once, then ignores it. Pain that can be managed is not the priority. Reports flood in out of order, a stairwell compromised, smoke spreading unpredictably, a patient on mechanical ventilation who cannot be moved without risking cardiac arrest. The map she holds in her mind begins to fracture, routes collapsing faster than she can redraw them. Security requests direction. The word lands heavily, not because she wants it, but because once asked, responsibility cannot be put back. She gives clear, limited instructions. Seal 2 levels. fall back from the third. Do not pursue, contain and observe. Her language is careful, stripped of bravado. She does not promise control. She promises time. Time is currency now. In the ICU overflow, she finds the patient she was warned about. Elderly, fragile, dependent on machines that hum steadily, oblivious to chaos. The attending physician looks up as she enters, eyes tired, hands stained with antiseptic. "We can't move him," the doctor says before she can ask. "I know," she replies. They stand in silence for a moment, listening to distant alarms and closer breathing. The nurse studies the room. 2 entrances, 1 reinforced wall, oxygen lines exposed along the ceiling. Not ideal, but workable. She orders the room sealed and reroutes foot traffic away from it, drawing attention elsewhere. She positions security outside, instructing them not to engage unless absolutely necessary. Their job is not to win, it is to delay. As she leaves, she catches a glimpse of her reflection in the glass. Scrubs torn slightly at the knee, a smear of blood she does not recognize on her sleeve. She wipes it away without looking. A call comes through from below. The threat has changed tactics. Hostages are being taken, not randomly but strategically. Access points. Leverage. Her jaw tightens. This was always a possibility. Now, it is real. She reroutes again, sacrificing 1 corridor to protect 3 others. She locks a door with staff still on the far side, trusting their ability to shelter in place. It is a necessary cruelty. She marks the door mentally, a promise to return if time allows. Time rarely allows. A young orderly panics and runs, drawing attention. The nurse intercepts him just before he reaches an open junction, pulls him into cover, and holds him there until his breathing slows. She gives him a task, simple, grounding. Fear recedes when purpose takes its place. Her radio crackles with an update she does not want. The threat is closing in on the ICU overflow. She calculates distances, response times, odds. None of them are good. There is one option left that buys enough time, but it costs her position. It puts her closer than she has allowed herself to be. She makes the call without announcing it. She moves away from safety and toward the sound. Each step tightens the knot in her chest. Not fear, but consequence. If this fails, there will be no one left coordinating. The map will scatter. People will default to panic. She adjusts her pace, controlling her breath, preparing not for violence, but for proximity. Behind her, the hospital holds. Ahead of her, the threat waits. And between them now, there is no one else willing or able to stand in the space she has chosen. The hallway narrows as she approaches the ICU overflow wing. The lights here are dimmer, emergency power bleeding through fixtures never meant to carry it. Every step echoes longer than it should. Sound travels strangely when a building is wounded. She slows. Rushing now would be a mistake. The threat knows this space better than before. They have had time to listen, to learn patterns. Speed would announce her. Calm will not. She stops just short of the corner and listens. Breathing, not labored, controlled. A voice murmurs, low, measured, issuing instructions to someone who is crying. Hostages, close, too close. Her radio vibrates once. Security asking for permission to advance. They are keyed up, ready to force the issue, to end it fast. She does not answer immediately. She imagines the outcome if they push. Gunfire in tight quarters, oxygen lines ruptured, machines silenced, innocents paying for momentum. She keys the radio. "Hold position," she says quietly. "Do not engage." There is resistance in the silence that follows, then reluctant compliance. She edges closer until she can see into the room through the narrow window. 2 staff members on their knees. The patient behind them, unconscious, ventilator steady. The threat stands off to the side, weapon lowered but ready, eyes alert. Not frantic, not cornered, calculating. She steps into view deliberately, hands visible, posture neutral. She does not announce herself as authority. She does not threaten. She places herself where she can be seen without becoming the center. "I can help you leave," she says calmly. The threat turns, surprised, not by her presence but by her tone. He expects shouting, negotiation, fear. He does not get it. "You can't," he replies. "They already tried." "They tried to stop you," she says. "That's different." She gestures, not at him but at the room. "This patient can't move. Neither can they." She nods toward the hostages. "You already know that." A beat passes. Another. The threat shifts his weight. He is listening. That matters. Security murmurs urgently in her ear. They have a shot, a narrow one. They want permission. She closes her eyes for half a second. If she gives it, the threat may go down, but so might the oxygen line behind him, so might one of the hostages. Probability does not comfort the dead. She opens her eyes. "No shot," she says into the radio. "Stand down." The threat hears the confidence in her voice and understands something fundamental has changed. This is not a nurse improvising. This is someone choosing limits. She steps closer, just enough to take risk onto herself. "I'll stay," she says. They go. The threat laughs softly, incredulous. "You?" "Yes." Behind her, a security officer shifts, despite orders. The threat's attention flickers for a split second. The nurse does not look back. She raises one hand slightly, not a command, just a reminder. Stillness returns. After a long moment, the threat nods once. One hostage is released, then the other. They scramble away, shaking, alive. The nurse remains. Her heart rate stays even. Her body, however, registers the cost. She is close enough now to see the tremor in the threat's hands, close enough to know how quickly this could end badly. She holds the line anyway, because some victories are not about stopping someone. They are about refusing to become the reason others die. Time stretches in the ICU overflow room, thinning into something fragile. The nurse stands where she said she would, slightly off-center, never blocking the exit, never offering her back. She keeps her hands visible, her movements economical. The threat watches her closely now, reassessing assumptions that no longer fit. Outside the room, the hospital adjusts around them. Ventilation reroutes, power stabilizes, security shifts positions quietly, no longer hunting, only shaping space. The chaos that once filled the corridors has condensed into this single room, this narrow margin where decisions still matter. "You're not afraid," the threat says, almost to himself. "I am," she answers evenly. "It doesn't change what needs to happen." That honesty lands harder than defiance would have. She speaks in short intervals, never rushing, never pressing. She describes the exits that remain open, the stairwell that leads away from patients, the timing between security movements. She does not promise escape. She offers clarity, control without illusion. The threat listens. He checks his watch. He has lost time. He knows it. From the corner of her eye, she sees security move exactly where she expected them to. Not closer, not farther. Containment, not confrontation. She built this shape. Now she trusts it. A distant announcement echoes faintly through the building, muffled by sealed doors. External authorities have arrived. They are taking over the perimeter. Inside, nothing changes. They are too far away to matter yet. The threat exhales slowly. The weapon lowers another fraction. "I walk," he says. "Alone." "Yes," she replies. "That's the only way this ends cleanly." She steps aside, opening the path without ceremony. As he moves past her, close enough that she can smell smoke and metal, she does not tense. She does not reach. She lets the moment pass intact. Security shadows him down the hall, disciplined now, silent. No one fires. No one rushes. The stairwell door closes behind them with a controlled finality. Only then does the nurse allow herself to lean against the wall. Her ankle gives slightly. The pain sharpens, catching up all at once. She breathes through it, steady, grounding herself in the sounds that mean survival, machines humming, footsteps returning, voices lowering. The ICU door opens behind her. The attending physician steps out, eyes searching her face. "It's over?" he asks. She nods once. "Contained." He studies her, seeing her properly for the first time. He starts to say something, gratitude, questions, something heavier. She shakes her head gently. "Check your patient." He does. As she walks away, the hospital begins to reclaim itself. Protocols resume. Authority settles back into visible shapes. Reports will be written, timelines reconstructed, names assigned where they fit best. No one stops her. By the time external command reaches the floor, the threat is gone, the patients are safe, and the one person who held the center has already blended back into the building. The crisis ends without applause, which is exactly how she intended it. Morning arrives without ceremony. Sunlight slips through high windows and lands on floors still marked with scuffs from hurried movement. The hospital smells faintly of disinfectant and burned dust. Cleanup crews work silently, erasing evidence of a night no one wants to relive in detail. Briefings begin. Administrators gather in glass rooms, voices low, faces tight. Security files reports that do not quite align. Timelines overlap. Credit drifts toward titles, toward departments, toward systems that look good on paper. No one lies outright. They simply describe the parts they saw. The nurse sits on a bench near occupational health, her ankle wrapped, an ice pack melting slowly against her skin. A physician fills out a form without looking up. He asks if she fell. "Yes," she says. That is true enough. A senior official passes by, stops, then turns back. He studies her for a long moment, not her injury, but her posture, the way she holds herself even now. "You coordinated the lower-level evacuation," he says quietly. She does not confirm it. She does not deny it. "I followed what made sense," she replies. He nods once. That is all. No handshake, no commendation, just recognition without paperwork. Later, a memo circulates announcing updated emergency procedures, new routing logic, revised lockdown sequencing, subtle changes that mirror decisions she made under pressure. No attribution, no explanation. She reads it while standing at the medication cart, then closes the file. That part is done. A junior nurse approaches her hesitantly, eyes tired but curious. "How did you stay calm?" she asks. "When everything went wrong?" The nurse considers the question for a moment. "I didn't," she says. "I just kept moving." The answer seems to help. The junior nurse nods and walks away. By the end of the shift, the hospital sounds normal again. Too normal. The building has always been good at forgetting. So has she. 2 nights later, she is back on duty. Same scrubs, same badge, same quiet corner of the floor where no one important ever stands for long. Her ankle still aches, but it holds. Pain fades when it is no longer useful. Patients arrive, charts stack up, monitors beep in familiar rhythms. A new security officer nods at her in passing, not recognizing her face, only the uniform. She nods back. In a supply room, she notices an emergency radio has been replaced and mounted properly this time. Someone learned something. That is enough. She adjusts a bed position for comfort, dims a light, corrects a dosage without comment. A doctor thanks her absently and moves on. Order returns in small, unremarkable ways. Near the end of the shift, she pauses at the same window overlooking the ambulance bay. The shadows are different now. Cameras cover more ground. The blind spot is gone. She watches an ambulance pull in, doors opening, routine unfolding. The world did not change. It rarely does. She straightens her badge, turns from the window, and walks back into the noise without drawing attention. There is no audience for restraint. No reward for choosing limits over force. That is fine. The hospital does not need to know who held it together when it mattered. It only needs to keep standing, and it does.